Well, hello everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Tawheed, Spiritual Unity of the Three Principles. And today we have an amazing guest, actually, Dr. Keith Blevens. And for those of you who doesn't know who Dr. Keith is, Dr. Keith is a licensed clinical psychologist with a BA degree from Indiana University and a PhD from Texas Tech University. He has been an adjunct faculty member at 9 universities, clinical director at the Minneapolis Institute of Mental Health, director of the Baylor University Psychological Services, on the staff of Prensky and Associates, and now owns his own consulting firm with his spouse of 42 years, Valda Monroe. He has served as a three principles educator, trainer, and consultant to executives, businesses, organizations, helping professional individuals, couples, and families for over 44 years. He is certified by the Three Principles Foundation to teach the three principles as discovered and taught by Sydney Banks. And he's currently working on a book with his wife, Valda Monroe, at the request of late Sydney Banks. This will include text specifically written by Mr. Banks only for this work. Prior to Sid's death, he wrote this endorsement for the book cover. One of the main reasons I'm honored to see Dr. Blevens write this book is that it may bring hope to those who are suffering needlessly and bring answers to helpers looking for the missing link psychologically. Missing link psychology and psychiatry have been searching for. This is by Mr. Banks. So really good to have you here, Dr. Keith. I was looking forward to this conversation because Dr. Keith was the first person who actually introduced me to this understanding via my mentor back then, Mamun Youssef. So I got invited to this 3 days seminar where Dr. Keith Blevens was speaking. And it's funny actually, because prior to that, I used to go to this self-help, self-development seminars where, you know, everyone were full of energy, jumping all over the place. Whereas when I actually came for the first day, listening to Dr. Keith, I was kind of shocked because it wasn't like, you know, the seminars I used to go to. It was kind of calm. And to be honest with you, like from my arrogant perspective back then, I found Dr. Keith, you know, to try to find his word. I was like, okay, like, you know, just pick it up and just talk what he's trying to say. But I didn't know back then that he was trying to convey or to explain the inexplainable. He was trying to point us at our true self that doesn't have specific words for that. And so my little mind was kind of, you know, trying to project everything what Dr. Keith was speaking about from, you know, about thoughts. And I was like, okay, I know thoughts. And I don't know if you remember, Keith, this, but, you know, I remember like I bombarded you with questions and you were like, no, Omar, you're not listening. and in my mind, I was like, if there is anyone listening in this room, it's me, Dr. Keith, come on. But I didn't know that Dr. Keith was, you know, telling me to listen, you know, from a blank slate. And so to my surprise, I came back the second day because I thought like, I'll not come back there because like, it's not like how the seminars I'm used to go to, but I'm glad I did, because the second day of the seminar is where I kind of saw that what Dr. Keith was talking about. I didn't get it, but I felt good. I really felt good, and I felt so free. And normally for me to feel that kind of peace and calmness, I have to meditate for it. I used to meditate a lot, like every day, nearly every day. And I felt that like a huge baggage off my shoulders. And so I knew that there is something in there that I should be, you know, reading about and just deepening my understanding. And I'm glad I did. And I remember something that Dr. Keith asked me at the end of the seminar, what did you get out? What's your insights? And I was like, I'm confused. I'm really confused. And I was confused, but I also was happy, you know. I felt different. And even my friend noticed that after that seminar. And I remember something specific that you told me, Dr. Keith. I don't know if you remember that, but you told me, don't try to read any book about that until you finish your psychology degree, because it was my first year of psychology. And he didn't tell me why. And now it's obvious to me that it conflicts with psychology, because I really felt weird in the class. I felt like, you know, that we're studying about the edge of how to avoid the edge of Earth, thinking that planet Earth is still flat. But I came to realize, like, deeply, that there is no such a thing. Planet Earth is spherical, and there is nothing to be afraid of. There is no edge. There is no edge. And so, you know, day by day and week after week, I just felt again that I could be studying psychology and not take it all in, but, you know, using the Zen metaphor, eating the fish whole and spit the bones, just keep what I need to keep and reject the rest. So really honored to have you with us, Dr. Keith. I'll pass it over to Harry to say a few words and then to you.
A few words, yeah. Yeah. First, this is the finish of another half season for us, and I want to say how much I've been pleased with the way that the show. This is 1.5 years now, Keith, that we've been doing a show every 2 weeks, and the outstanding feature of the show in many ways is the unique flavor that the Muslim community brings in, or people who are interested in the Muslim community touch. And I've always prided myself in trying to bring topics that are different than the normal topics that other people like to do. And I've done that in all the shows that I've done. But when you work, as you know, Keith, when you work with someone like Omar and watch him develop, and we have also Suad, she's not here, she's a co-host in our general discussions and so on. You really enjoy the evolvement, the growing, and now we have more people are watching our YouTube and our podcasts. So I want to say it's been a really neat thing. And Omar always likes to finish a half season with somebody who's well established, more of an icon in the 3P community and so on. So it's been a great half season. We're really pleased with that. I also had the privilege of working with Keith, with the indigenous people for 6 months. And one of the two things that I noticed about Keith, first I'm going to talk about what he was teaching them. At that point in evolution of the 3 principles, they called it 3 principles, but it was only about thought. And that was what was being taught. It evolved into a deeper and deeper connection of the 3 integrated principles. But at that point, the psychological community was just teaching thought. And within that, I saw Keith had special talents. And the 2 things that I noticed that he brought in was what a nice guy he is, what a genuinely nice human being he is. And that, with the indigenous people, is a big plus, because if they can really sense when people are on the make. And the second thing I saw, which is more professional, was Keith was the best person I ever saw one-to-one, and still is the best one-to-one. He answered questions simpler than anybody else. They were always well thought, and they were clear of what he is. So I'm really highly recommending that you ask a question that's on your mind, and you're going to hear a very clear answer. And his bedside manner, which is with the indigenous is not easy, is impeccable. They just loved his bedside manner. I'm controversial and loud and noisy. Keith we're kind of good cop, bad cop type of thing. Keith was the good cop. And and so on. And the questions I asked as we were driving up, it's like a 3-hour trip, nonstop, I asked him questions. And so on one level, although I've always said the only teacher that I ever have had is Sid Banks, I will have to say that Keith made a major contribution to a very stubborn and egotistical human being who had a heart of gold. So with that in mind, Keith, to another man who has a heart of gold, go ahead and chit chat whatever you like about. What's the topic, Omar? It's
how Sydney Banks influenced my professional life and personal life. About Keith.
Well, thank you for these kind words. They touch me deeply. I think that in life, probably all of us are looking for something, and whether we know it or not. And most of us, I didn't know what. I knew I was looking for something, but I had no idea what it might be. But I was searching, and by the grace of chance and divine chance, I stumbled into Sydney Banks after my graduate training, and I found something that I found what I was looking. I found what I was looking for. Sorry, I'm a little bit emotional, but I really did. I started. I got a taste, and that taste stayed on my palate. It stayed with me, and I kept returning to it. I couldn't quit. I couldn't. I couldn't quite get the taste out of my mouth, you might say. Like, I got a taste of something. I thought, I've never tasted that before. What is that? And that's what Sid was talking about. And it drew me back and drew me back and drew me back, and it still draws me back from the edge of my ego, which is not pretty, but that taste is beautiful, and it really helped me, and continues to help me every day. I remember at Sid's memorial, they asked me to speak, and I was overcome with emotion then too, actually. But I said something that was really honest. I said that Sid had saved me from getting a divorce and from being a jerk. And everyone, I think everyone in that room heard me, and they laughed because it was so honest. And I think most of them felt the same way. Like, boy, what a mess I would have made, but for these principles, and Sid's articulation of them, Sid's profound message that he brought as an enlightened man. He was enlightened, and it gave him power to speak of a dimension that that was that taste that I got, and that dimension was not in the world of my field. You know, it wasn't in psychology. It wasn't in it. It was sprinkled in there, but boy, you had to really you if you didn't know what you were looking for at the you know, as you were seeing these sprinkles, you wouldn't know. Oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. After Sid, I could spot it. There it was. Oh, he brought the consciousness to. He brought the light. He brought the focus. He brought the concentrated light to my life, and I couldn't uh, get it out of my mind, and you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I think God must have brought that concentrated light to him, because it was he described what happened to him as so beautifully, as many of you have probably heard, but you know, this buzzing white light, and buzzing, 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 and thereafter, that's he was changed, and he spoke about how he spoke about what he found, and that he, and then he turned it around to be able to say that you too, this is not just for you. Many years later, after I met Sid in 1976 or 7, whenever it was, I met, I saw, I got on a bus. I was at the University of West Virginia Medical School, and they took a tour, and Sid was speaking at this opening of the Sidney Banks Institute for Innate Health at that university. And I got on this bus, and on this bus, I spotted Sid's brother-in-law. So this was Barb Banks's brother. And he was there. He was sitting on this bus, and I was surprised to see him. And because I had met him years before, and Dave was his name, and Dave Simpson, and he bore a kind of likeness to Sid. He was about his stature, and he had thinning hair, and so I knew him, and I thought, Dave Simpson's on this bus, and so there was an empty seat next to him, so I sat down, and he remembered me, and we chatted, and he said the most interesting thing. He said, you know, I said, what was it like for you? This was your brother-in-law that was enlightened. Like, what possibly could that have been like? He said, well, for the longest time, he said, for maybe 10 months, I thought, well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful what happened to Sid. He's a different person, and he's really remarkably wise and generous, and he's really has changed. And then he said, after about 10 months or so, all of a sudden, it occurred to me he wasn't talking about what happened to him. He was talking about what could happen to everybody. And it could happen to me. So what he had, I could have a piece of too. And he said that totally surprised me. And there was that taste again. You know, there was that taste that I felt I got it, and I would venture to say most all of you have had that taste, and that's why you're here. And I remember the first time I heard Sid speak, he said, I remember him saying, it doesn't matter why you're here. He said, somewhere along the line, you're attracted to energy. And that's good enough. That's your ticket. You know, you've punched your ticket. You got attracted to energy. And welcome. So it's interesting, isn't it, to have a person who represents something far greater, you know, than himself. He really didn't have any self to really offer. He was so such a generic person. You know, he was a welder and with a ninth grade education, and an immigrant. He was adopted. He really had no outstanding. He didn't have an MD degree or PhD or anything. He had nothing really of note. Yet here he was talking wisdom, like right out of the blue, and it would just go on and on and on and on, like he could talk for days, and every sentence would be perfectly articulated. There would be no, like, through the years I've had the chance to work with his writings, work with, you know, listen to his recordings. I'm sure many of you have too, but listen to them carefully, because my God, it's really exceptional stuff. I mean, you don't hear it, you can't hear it, because there's no one enlightened recording, and it's not intellectual. And he said, you know, that enlightened people, the enlightened ones, have an important message to give to this world, but they were often frowned upon, because what they had to say quite often went against intellectual understanding. And he, and it did go, it went completely against everything that I was taught and trained in graduate school. It was from a different dimension, and it's for everybody. So that really, I mean, in a way, I would say that's something of note that Sydney Banks brought to my life. Not just his story, but his consciousness about life, about mental life, and the nature of it, and the divine nature of mental life, and that it was already in place, that we already had this mental life, but he brought a focus to it. He shined a light on it, and it was a relentless light. It was not, its brilliance was so clear that you couldn't help but be, or I couldn't help but be. Now, I saw many people that weren't particularly impressed, and Lord knows where they are now today. Like they might have, they kind of skittered in, and then they would skitter away. And he mentions the same thing in my book. He says that he could see that people would come, and they had in mind what they already had in mind what they were looking for. And he could see that. He could see that they had barriers. You know, they had ideas, and and he could see that it was that those ideas, those egotistical ideas, were holding them back. And he would talk to them, and then they would say, well, you know, it's Monday. I've got an appointment, you know, on the mainland or whatever, and it's been nice. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. And Sid says in my book, he says, they broke my heart. They broke my heart. Like they were so close to everything they were looking for, but they didn't really catch it. You know, they glanced in and then glanced out, and they assumed, he could tell that the way they talked about their enlightenment was nothing of what he was talking about. And they wanted to talk about it. They wanted to tell him what they knew. And they didn't really give him a chance, you know, to really share. And so he would see them walk away, and time after time after time. And I thought, now I know what that was. I know those barriers, and that he was a cleaner. He would clean that out if you could stick with it a little bit and let that light penetrate you. It would clear out. And we're still getting insights, and I think we will get them for the rest of our lives about, oh, that's a silly thought. That's a silly belief. That's something that isn't true. His truth revealed what was not true. Black and white, not kind of revealed it. It was like there was a line that he walked and talked and saw and communicated from, that was eternal, you know, and it was uncompromising. There was a difference between the principles, the truth of the principles, and all this other egotistical mess that humanity is lost in. And that black and white thing, he was real. He was he couldn't help himself but be true to it. And thank God for him, you know, because someone who brings such a luminescence to the truth and knew not truth, that you could garner and see for yourself. Man, you've got a real you're very, very fortunate, because there is a difference between ego and truth, and it is black and white. So that's what he brought to the world, and simultaneously brought to me too, but wow, that's what I got to say. Wow. So maybe that this is a good place to stop and answer any questions or any thoughts that people have.
Can I make an observation? Just when Keith was talking about black and white, of course, we all hear it in our own words. For me, it was a fact. I needed to have a rock that I could hold on to. I had followed many other great people with great potential, but it never fulfilled what I needed. And I didn't, like Keith, none of us knew what we were looking for in those early days, but we knew what we weren't looking for. And then I needed something that I could hold on to. This black and white image was the reality that I brought so much gratitude, because finally, we had something that was real. And that real feeling carried us through the good times and the subtle mistakes we made in our life. But there was always that rock to hold on to, a fact.
I would agree, and thanks for mentioning that, Harry, because he called that truth. He called fact. He said when a fact appears, the ego collapses on a particular subject, and there are trillions of subjects. So that difference between a fact and trillions of subjects or beliefs and ideas, concepts, that's a black and white line, and he called it fact. He called it truth. But he said the truth. He also said that people have their own. Each person has their own truth, and they, which is a belief, and this is why we fight with each other. He said, we fight with each other over our individualized little truth. But he said the truth that I'm talking about is from original mind. And that truth is everybody's truth. And that and everybody's truth is inarguable. It's not of an order of up for debate or beliefs. It's a truth. It's an immortal truth. And in immortal truth, everyone's truth is the same. And he said once that, just to say this another way, but he said to me, he even mentioned this once in a living room conversation somewhere. He says, no two enlightened people could ever disagree. And that really, I thought about that. That stuck with me, still with me today after all these many years. And I thought, he said, because they would see the same thing. So there would be no possibility of disagreement. And that being the case, well, that sheds light on all the arguments that we've all had, or that the world has with each other. The multitude of conflicts, racial tensions, and issues, and problems, and divorces, and disconnections, and judgments, and people turning their back on one another, and all of those disagreements. Like what Sid saw was that all of that was a symptom, you know, of misunderstanding. And my God, the world is suffering from that horribly. But because there's no disagreement on the level of the principles, or on the level of before time, space, and matter truth, that's the solution to all our problems. There is no, all of our problems are rendered impotent, rendered meaningless in the truth. And when people, as people see that, they become peacekeepers. They become better, less egotistical, more truth tellers. They have to. That's what's happening to us. Anyone else have a thought, question, or anything?
If anyone got a question, please just raise your digital hands and I'll unmute you. Vera, go ahead. Would you like to unmute yourself, Vera?
Called on somebody else, but I'll go. Oh, Keith, that was just so beautiful. I was crying right along with you. And I also have a question. A lot of people right now, I wonder what you think about this. A lot of people are listening to and following Eckhart Tolle. And to me, I mean, you know, of course, I don't think he says anything bad or harmful, but it's not what you were talking about what Sid saw, that level of enlightenment, to what I hear. So I don't know if you can say something or speak to that a bit, or other people like Eckhart who had some sort of experience.
Yeah. Well, for myself, like years after I met Sid, I ran across Eckhart Tolle, and I read his book, and this is a personal story. So I read his book and I thought, wow, he's saying the same thing. He's saying the same thing. And so I got really excited. And this is just me. And so I thought, I'm gonna check this out more, you know, see what what Eckhart Tolle's up to. And so I called his institute or something. There was some hotline number or something like that, and they signed me up. They said, well, we'll provide a consultation to you. And I thought, oh, wonderful. You know, that it would be like, I thought it would be like meeting all of you all. You know, I thought it would be identical. And so I had this conversation and this session. And in the session, the person says, starts giving me a relaxation technique. He says, okay, now I want you to imagine your toes being relaxed, and then up into your ankles, and then up into your calves. And I thought, what? Because I knew what Sid said, that a technique is saying that it's not inside. And here they were doing techniques. And so I knew, I spotted it right away. I thought, and then I started to look further into it, and I realized it just wasn't this, it wasn't the same. It was it wasn't the same. And Sid's, I don't know why Sid saw it so deeply. Well, he says he died. In this one of these little videos that Three Principles Global put out, which I was in both audiences whenever he spoke at the University of West Virginia, and well, I wasn't at the interview that he conducted with Shane Kennedy, but I'm just saying is that I don't know why he's so simple and so profound and so specific and right on, but he was. And if you listen carefully, I found a huge difference. As soon as I found the difference, I thought, whoa, why listen to someone who's a little murky, or has a little bit of, like, I could start hearing things in Eckhart Tolle, this is just me, that were sort of like a little Buddhism thrown in, a little there were elements that were like, it was good. It wasn't that it was fundamentally wrong. I'm like you, but it wasn't, but it's not the same. And I don't know why that's, well, Sid just saw it. He really got a full download. And so I don't really want anything that is less than the best I could get, because I got enough trouble on my own to just keep myself oriented in the right direction, so I don't need anyone, even that might be a little bit different, a little murky, a little bit contaminated. So that really, that's what I have to say about Eckhart Tolle. Like, again, I think it's very reminiscent, but also there's no principles in there. And Sid, think about it, like, he kept to those principles. He kept coming back to it. Like, I thought for myself, I thought, oh, he's gonna start off. I mean, this sounds pitiful, which it is pitiful of me to think, oh, he's gonna start off with the principles again. For Pete's sake, doesn't he have any other topic or any other way of approaching this? But and as he says in my book, he says he saw those principles immediately at enlightenment. He saw those principles. It wasn't like he brought it up. Like, I've heard some people say, even that have been students of his, say, oh, Sid brought up the principles once a psychologist got involved. But Sid doesn't say that. In my book, he says immediately at that onset that he saw these principles, and he knew what they were, and he knew how to he knew that they were the answer. They were the spiritual gifts that everyone that is endowed in the universe with, or everyone in the universe is endowed, or the universe is endowed with, you might say. And so, so that's what I have to say. I could go on and on, but
Maybe we could go to another question then.
yeah.
Yes. I have another question for Vera that's had issues with the microphone. So she asked, you said that fact dissolves ego. How do you live with facts that you've become ruined by superego? Let your completely ruined your life, lost the love of your life.
Well, she might. Now, evidently, you know, I would just ask her to study a little more, because I think you'll find that there's no superego. For example, there's superego in Freudian psychology, but there's no superego in the principles. Yeah. The principles reveal that one of the things that stops people from hearing fact is what you think, and what you think is ego. And so Sid was really, that line was very simple. And so fact, when he says fact, he means no barriers, he means it interchangeably with fact is logic, is truth, is a holistic existence without form, that is that is before time, space, and matter. That's the title, by the way, of Sid's autobiography that has not yet been published. Beyond Time, Space, and Matter. He went beyond time, space, and matter somehow, some way. I don't know how. He doesn't know how. But that's what happened to him, and he came back from it and lived to tell the tale. He says in one of these videos, if you listen carefully, he says, this was at the University of West Virginia lecture. He says, I don't know if he kind of says it to himself. I don't know if I should say this or not, but well, here goes. He says, when you die, when anybody dies, they're automatically enlightened. Automatically. Now, me, I thought Adolf Hitler, that's what I thought. This is my little pea brain. I thought Adolf Hitler was enlightened at death. But he said everybody. But he said, you're dead. So it doesn't do the rest of us any good. But he said what happened to him is he died in 1973. It wasn't a near-death experience. He died to this world, and he said, the first thing he said was, I'm home, I'm free, I've conquered this world. And this means to say that we're going to be he's talking to his wife, he says, this means to say we're going to be traveling the world. And what I just discovered will change the psychology and psychiatry of the world. And he looks at her And she's aghast. She's like, what in the world are you talking about? You don't even, like, she thought he had lost his mind or gone off my head. That's how he put it. She thought I had gone off my head. But what he discovered was everybody around him had already gone off their head. And he was the one person who died and came back from it and could tell the tale. And when he did, he had a really profound message. And it's inexplicable why that would be the case. It was inexplicable to him why that would be the case, because he said, I don't know why this happened to me. I have no idea, but it happened. So listen, you know, I hardly recommend anyone listen to anything that he ever recorded, and listen again and again and again, because there's such profundity in there that you'll never in this lifetime even begin to fathom. But as he said, he said, just get a glimmer, just a glimmer will turn your whole world upside down. And you'll find the contentment for your work, for your life. You'll find the contentment for your marriage, for your soul. You'll find everything possible and more in this life. And he said, I promise you that.
Love it. I hope this answered your question. I think Alia asked it. So you ready to take the next question, Keith?
Sure.
We are nearly 1 hour on the show, and I hope you don't mind if we go a bit over that. If it's
That's
okay
all
with
right.
you.
It's okay with me.
Thank you. Thank you. So Joe, could you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, hiya. Yeah, hi,
Hi.
Keith. Yeah, what
Hi.
I wanted to... Hi again. Yeah, what I wanted to ask about was, like, people say to trust your gut feeling or your intuition about other people, that if someone seems a bit off and that, it's probably telling you that they're not safe to be with. And I mean, what I was asking was like, how you know it's that and it's not a judgment you've made about that person based on your own preconditioned ideas. And I mean, I'll just give a couple of quick examples. It's like when I was at college, there was a kid there, a blonde kid about 18, and he seemed quite offy to me, not very friendly. And I just judged him as not very nice and maybe someone to stay away from. Well, I got to know him a few times. And then after that, I mean, he was one of the nicest, sweetest people I'd ever met. And he became a really good friend. And I mean, another example was like, I read a story of a little autistic boy who was being bullied and was too scared to go to school. And a Hell's Angel saw that, and he got his whole chapter to come and walk this boy every day to school. Now, you would say that your intuition, that would tell you to stay away from somebody like that. So that's, yeah, my question is like how you discern between what is generally what people would say to kids, like trust your feeling about staying away from somebody, and it's not just your judgment you've made about them.
Well, that's a great question, and I think there is too much in the what Sid defined as not principled, which is more what he called mortal psychology, and I would put that in the mortal, that trust your gut. And a lot of people, you know, it's a kind of like a handy phrase, and business people talk about that, and as if that's truth, or that's the way to find truth. Well, it's not. It's got all kinds of biases, and you can have egotisms in there, like your story reveals. That it's not really. That's not the ultimate discernment that you want to promote or patty about as that's what people really could use. This truth within is not it's a spiritual fact, but it doesn't have fear in it. Or and because it's as Sid said, he said in God mind, that fear is just a thought, and it's just, and as such, it has no enduring existence. And so fear is not really true. It's not really true. And when you see that if you see you're fearful, which you maybe often are, I get fearful, but if you know that it's ego and fear are like brothers, and they commiserate together, they plot together. You get two brothers together that cook up some devious plan. So the principles bring something that reveals the futility or the outside in-ness, or the irrelevance of fear. But without that, you can you have a really good sorter. If you're going on like what business people or other people might call their gut, it's not as accurate, and it has error base in it, and because of that, it's just another one of those types of things that it's what I would call a mixed paradigm. Is it true that there's gut, your stories like the Hell's Angels watching out for the autistic kid? Yay, that's good. But would we say the Hell's Angels are emissaries of truth, or not? Or I mean, it's not. Those are just stories. But and I think Sid was really clear about that. He you all know it, but I mean, he would say it over and over and over again, that it's not. You can't. The words aren't. Can't capture the truth. They can, like he would say, I'm trying to say it, but I'm not saying it. He knew that you have to go beyond the words. That he said the words can lead you to the door. He said, I can even open the door, but you have to walk through the door. You have to find it for yourself. And you can't really, you can't you can't do that for another person. So I love that story he tells about the older Hawaiian couple listening, and they had had a great kahuna. Was one of, maybe I think it was their grandfather or something, and so they decided to go on public TV. They were both older, and he said they were beautiful people, but they thought now's the time, because their grandfather had always said it's a truth that can't be told. And they thought, well, we're getting older and we've got public television now. We feel like this is the time to tell it. We're going to tell the truth. And Sid sort of smiled and chuckled and said, well, no, he wasn't saying that it shouldn't be told. He was saying that it couldn't be told. It's not tellable. It's not a word-based, intellectualized message. It can't be. He knew that. And he said it over and over and over again. Now, I don't know about you, but with my thick head, I was like, yeah, well, okay, I know it can't be said, but say some more, But I had to go beyond that limitation. And when I did, I found something really conceptual, wordless. Nothing. I found nothing. And when you find nothing, that's that one thought that Sid talked about. He said, it's everybody on earth is looking for one thought, and the one thought they're looking for is no thought.
Can I say something, Keith? In answer to your question, Joe, no one, of course, can tell you what is a right or wrong feeling, but I can see where if I'm following a wrong feeling, where it goes. And generally speaking, my mind gets very active and imaginative and explosive. And I can identify that I simply misinterpreted what was a gut feeling. And when Keith is talking about a gut feeling, he's more talking about the technique of a gut feeling, in my words, in my image. And to me, gut feeling is very important, or intuition is very important. It's very mystical. But you have to know what is a rock and what is a fabricated self-image creation. Then you can trust your feelings, because Keith was very clear early on in the teaching. You have to see what's not true. That will take you to truth, as well as seeing truth. And when you see what your image of a gut feeling is versus the true gut feeling, it's a totally different paradigm, a totally different experience. But it creates, once walks you into that door, that open door that Keith is suggesting. And the other one, it looks like a door that's open, but it's a pit that you fall down into. So you should be able to discern for yourself what is the right feeling for you and the wrong feeling. And when you make a mistake, that's beautiful, because then you say, I'm not going to trust that feeling again. That one fooled me, and so on.
So we've got 2 more questions. Is that okay with you, Keith, if we go?
Yeah, keep going. Don't keep asking him. That's good. He's going to answer him anyway. So,
Okay. So, James, why don't you unmute yourself and go and ask your question?
Oh, I see. Oh, is it
We
Jim?
can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself? I've just sent you another request. Great.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You know, I just want to say, hi, Jim. It's Jim and Pam. Isn't it?
It is and it isn't. It is not Pam. It is another lady.
Oh, all right. All right.
This is Rosalind.
Hi, Rosalind.
Hi.
Pam passed away about 8 years ago.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
My condolences. But I just realized your face, and I thought, oh my gosh, I know these people. Like I've seen you there, but I couldn't really sort it out. So it's so nice to see you again.
Yes, and you too. It's a pleasure to see you, and it's been a delight listening to you share, sharing with you in a sense, but hearing what you've had to say. Very revealing in many ways for me. And the question that I wanted to put to you, though, Keith, is how soon is the book that you're referring to, how soon would that be available to people? And also, do you have any information regarding Syd's biography coming to light for the world to share? And I'm sure that's on many people's minds out of curiosity and eagerness to have more. And yeah. Can you help us in that way?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about his autobiography, and that's not under any of my jurisdiction or whatever. I have what is under my jurisdiction, this text, and I don't know when it might be available, but ballpark, maybe a year. I don't know. Like, but people sort of tell me this is my first, it's the only book I probably ever will write. But so I'm speaking out of my bank of experience. But people tell me, once you finish it, then there's there's something else that happens, editing and what have you. So I have to make allowances for that. So but I would say ballpark within a year might be reasonable. It's been an interesting thing to kind of co-author with Syd, because he really sent me a wealth of text, and there's just treasures in there. It's just laden with treasures. So I can understand. I know why people want to get their teeth into it. But I also I don't know. I guess I've been kind of I'm cognizant, deeply cognizant of this co-author of mine, Sydney. Like this guy, this person, this being was monumental, and so it's kind of humbled me 1,000 times over to compose. He just handed it to me, but it was in rough draft form. But then it wasn't really in rough draft form, because as you all might appreciate, he just espoused this wisdom, and it's really uneditable. So I might change a piece of punctuation or something there, or more, and then I'll look back on it, I think, now sometimes there is punctuation, but
Sure.
To try and edit his writing is is you know, it's a joke. It's a joke. And the joke's on me. So so that's the best I can say. It's so nice.
We're waiting, and yeah, certainly I appreciate what you just said about you know, what do you do?
Yeah.
And you know the answer, and we want to share it. So we're all waiting, you know, for anything new coming from Syd's existing unpublished work, and this is the closest that I can see that something's going to, you know, break soon, and that would be what you're talking about. So, you know, best of luck with all of your endeavors on it, and you know that the rewards will be incredible for mankind. So
yeah,
absolutely. So we have another question from Divyash. Would you like to unmute yourself, Divyash?
Yeah, hi, how are you? Hi, Omar, Harry, and everyone. And thank you, Keith, for a wonderful talk, chat, web, whatever you want to call it, enlightened conversation. And I think my question might have the answers spread out throughout all the comments and the commentaries and all your reflections. But I'm just going to ask a direct one. I don't know whether it's been answered. You mentioned the word glimmer. That struck home for me. Glimmers of this is enough in a way. But the main question is, what did it take for you to trust the wisdom of Sydney Banks and the principles? What happened to you, if I can ask that, Keith, that made you drop all the intellectualizing and rationalizing and the analyzing and the justifying and all the shenanigans of yeah, because it's my mind is like that. It creates a barrier of thinking between me and experience, me and listening, me and me. So what was it with you in your wonderful journey that said, enough of this, or whatever, or this is just not true? Or how do you stop the analyzing or the mistrust of the principles? Distrust.
it's funny. A few years ago, my wife and I were having this conversation, and she said, "Well, what made you?" She kind of asked me the same question, and I said, "Well, I thought, well, Sid seems to know something. I have no idea what it is, but I could tell he's solid on it." So I said to her, so I thought, I'll give it a year. That's what I said. This is a conversation my wife and I actually had. And I said, so I thought, I'll give it a year. And after a year, I'll see, is this worthwhile or not? And my wife says, a year? She says, I says, yeah, like what? She says, well, I gave it a month. And so I don't know, like, it's just like, because look at what you got with your little mind. You got, I mean, really, I mean, you know, it's like I got nothing. I mean, you really have nothing. And so, I mean, I had nothing. Now, some people say, well, it took a lot of courage for you to give up 8 years of college for, well, it didn't take courage. It was just common sense. Like, I could see what was going on. Like, my professors were petty and argumentative and depressed, and all the giants of my field were all arguing with each other, and they had to exchange what I had with Sid was a no-brainer. You know, it was a no-brainer for me. Like, but I don't know. Now I know other people that never made the exchange. You know, they said, well, you know, they hold on to what they like I mentioned the story that he said it broke his heart for people to see they were this close. They're right here in front of me, and they're saying, I gotta go. I gotta catch a ferry. See you later. And he knew when they turned away, he would never talk to them again the rest of his life. He knew it. He could see it. He wasn't talking to them in the first place. They were thinking while he was talking. And so I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, but count yourself lucky if you can, you know, stop thinking and stop translating and issuizing and all that. If you could just listen for, you know, a little stretch and then another little stretch, you just might find something, you know, that's transcendent. So something you might find no thought.
Yeah.
No thought. That's what it's nothing. People are looking for nothing. But they think, oh no, I'm not looking. Like for me, when Sid said it's nothing, I felt a little sad. I thought, oh, nothing. Oh, that sounds like the existentialists or something. I thought it was something empty. But then he said, no, nothing is totally full. It's totally full of truth and wisdom. It wasn't, it didn't make me sad it made me fulfilled. Well, like, oh, it just was trying to say nothing because getting me past my intellect, which he always said is the very embodiment of ego that is strangulating the world. And it was strangulating me too.
I think it's doing the same here, but I'm still in the journey and still present here. So
Yeah.
it's a good sign.
And then you catch yourself like, you know, you're choking yourself. You're like, I can hardly breathe. And you think, wait a minute. Who's doing this to me? And well, I'm doing this to me, you know? And you've been had. And the joke's on you. And for some reason, I kind of appreciated that. Like you know, when a lot of people kid me because they say you're willing to be such a fool. Well, be a fool. Be a fool for love. Be a fool for life. Be a fool for wisdom. and you just might find everything and more that you ever dreamed of, but that's self, what do they call that?
Self-sabotage?
Say again?
Self-sabotage?
Well, it's self-sabotage, but they call it like this, when you're self-effacing, when people say, well, there's humility.
Humility.
When you get humility, you realize not knowing is it's not a bad thing. It's actually a wonderful thing.
The best thing. The best thing.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of that in my grandfather. He could tell a joke on himself and get everybody laughing, Self-effacing, that's a word. When you're self-effacing, it's like, hey, you want to know something stupid that I thought, something stupid that I did. When you let me tell you something. When you tell a joke on yourself, you've been had by the cosmos. The cosmos, God sort of taught you something about how much you think you really know, and that's a good thing. So maybe that was good.
Well, thank you so much. And just one last thing. I think it's the wisdom of like you and Harry and a lot of you guys were actually there with him, and Omar for doing this, and Suad. And one of the things I seem to get is you keep on throwing me into the space of uncertainty and not knowing, and then applauding that space in a beautiful way, such that inbred default or whatever the thinking-led fear of uncertainty disappears and wisdom appears. And I really, really love this for that. Thank you.
You got it right there. That's a beautiful way to say it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Divya. Thank you for your question. And something that occurred to me while Keith was speaking about nothingness is a song that I used to listen to years ago called "Nothing is Something Worth Doing." And I never thought about this song until I came across it like a month or two ago, and it just made another sense to me. Now that I came across this understanding that nothing is something worth doing. For me, when I'm not doing anything, I'm doing something in a different way, and that just helps me to kind of be, as you mentioned, Dr. Keith, be humble and put you in that space of humility, because when I'm humble, I'm able to listen to my wisdom. When I'm humble, I'm okay with the unknown. And
I think you change your mind, like you change, like you realize, oh, never mind what I had. I'm like, somebody described it like, it's like you're playing poker. I don't know that much about poker, but I know you got 5 cards, and they said it's like you're saying, oh, give me, they deal you your hand, and then you say, well, give me 5 new cards. So you throw away what you got, as if it was, it wasn't anything to begin with. What else you got? Give me 5 new things, and you realize that you're safe.
Just one last thing, there's a quote that I came across recently by Alan Watts. I just love this guy. He speaks. He's a philosopher and used to speak truth as well. And he once said that if you want to see something clear, you must not make an effort. You must simply trust your eyes and nervous system to do their thing. Isn't that the three principles in action? Just letting our, you know, our inner beauty take care of us, you know.
We all try to say it, and we, you know, we do a fair job of it, but we're all saying the same thing, but none of us on this, but none of us can really couch it right, say it right, but we'll give it a shot, you know, because just might, people might go beyond the words and hear something really, oh, that's what they're talking about. We're talking about the formless nature of existence. Again, just words. Well, thank you all so much for this enlightening conversation. I really appreciate it, and thank
you, Keith. Thank you. This was the best ending of the first half of the season. I was really looking forward to this, and I'm really glad to have you with us today. And thanks for Harry Durbisky, my co-host, and thanks for everyone who came and joined us today. You've just made this episode amazing with your questions and your presence. So thank you again. And Keith, thank you for your generosity, and you stayed with us for 1 hour and a half. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you all soon for another episode.
Merry Christmas. See you whatever it is that you're celebrating. See you next year. And thanks as for me too, Keith, for finishing the season with such. It's always a treat, honestly, Keith, to see the way you share things, how clear you are. And for such a dry person, you're quite funny.
That's great. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.